All right, now let's look at the idea of making this a little more complicated with something like a savings plan. Um, so I start with that same thing we had before. So here's our period, here's the balance, here's the interest on that balance, our interest rate, and then I did our ending balance minus the beginning balance. Now for this, I'm going to delete this. Um, and now what I'm going to do is add in a contribution. And let's just say now this would be a really low interest rate for a savings, but let's think of these periods as each year. Excuse me. And let's assume that when you began your savings, you put in $1,000, and then what you're going to do is add $1,000 to your balance each year. So you're working and you want to add $1,000 each year. So that's our contribution, and I'm going to put 1,000 in there as well. And now it automatically knew I had dollars because I'd had dollars in there a little bit ago. Now why it didn't center the contribution part, I don't know. But there we have our contribution. So now when we look at our new balance, what happens each period is, so let's look here, we have our balance, and that balance was our previous balance plus our interest on that balance. So we have that, and we have that computed each time, and we know that works. But now every period, at the beginning of the period, I'm going to toss in this other $1,000. Now once again, I could type $1,000 here, so I'm going to add in that $1,000, but I have that number here. Do not type $1,000. Click on that E2, and there I've just added my contribution, and there's my $1,000. Now remember that $1,000 just sits there the whole time, and since we aren't changing it, we're going to put a $sign on the, oops, I put it after the 2. I'm going to put a $sign on that 2 so that it doesn't change, because that's always there. And I hit enter, and so now notice instead of 1,020 I have 2,020. Now here everything went up by $1,000, but it didn't go up by $1,000 each period. And that's because if you look here, nothing changed here because I didn't change that cell. Okay, so you have to remember that after you change this one, okay, so here I changed that formula so that it had my previous balance, my interest that I got from the previous balance, and then plus my contribution. I hit enter, and now I have to pull this down. Now in Excel, I found that you truly have to pull it down, like this and there. I started pulling it down, and it fills things up. Now in OpenOffice and LibreOffice and maybe even Google Sheets, I think you can do this in all of these. If I double click, see it filled it all the way down. But Excel, if you already have numbers in it, it doesn't seem to let you overwrite it, so you would just have to take the cell you want to copy and grab it and pull it down like this. Okay, and so there is my $14,680. Now, so here, I would have to kind of look at how much did I contribute. Well, I contributed $1,000 in each of these periods. Well, so how many periods? Notice that's not 12. I contributed $1,000 in 13 periods. So I had contributed $13,000. But now notice that I've got 14,680. So I actually made $1,600, $1,680.33 in interest. And so by doing that contribution each year, I end up with a pretty nice sum. So after 12 years of saving, at the end of that 12 years, if that's what the periods are, is 12 years, I've made an extra $1,680, almost $1,700. And notice how the interest is going up. I mean, I only got $20 interest that first period, but I got $268 in interest that last period. And so once again, if I wanted, I could sum up all those interests. It's a little bit tougher. I can't just do the beginning balance and the end balance minus the beginning balance. I have to actually add up all my contributions that I used. Now, if you had varying contributions, you actually could, so for instance, if I thought I would do $1,000 a year for a few years. Now it's interesting, this is updating 1,003, 1,000, I don't want it to do that. So since I don't want it to do that, I'm going to do a copy, and I'm just going to paste that $1,000 in here like that. And so suppose I thought for the first 5 years I would do $1,000, and then after that I would do maybe $1,500 because I have a little more money. Now notice, it didn't make it into dollars, but that's okay. I just come up here, I can say I want dollars. Now again, I copy that and I paste it down here for each of those, and $1,500. Now what I can do is actually I can go here, change the formula, and this time I really do want it to update to the next row. Instead of always looking at that 1,000, I want it to look here at this 1,000, then at that 20, and then at this 1,000 here, and then the next time I want it to look at the next row down. So I take out the dollar sign, I do that, and again I pull those down, and notice my new balance reflects the fact that I was saving more money. And now, look, I've even got a whopping $320 interest. So this is the idea of something like a retirement, where, or even just my savings account, that with maybe each paycheck or each year, I put in a particular contribution. And I can either use just exactly the same contribution each time, or I can change that contribution. Okay, so now let's look at how a loan is different. Okay, suppose I borrowed $1,000. So my balance, the balance we're talking about, is still $1,000. And suppose I still have to pay 2% per period, whatever that period is. It could be a month, it could be a year, it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. Now, with credit cards, things like that, some of these payday lenders, it could definitely be 2% per month, which is 24% per year because there are 12 months in a year. So it could be a lot, but we'll just say it's 2% for a period, and so that all still works the same. The interest is still calculated by the interest rate and times the balance. So none of that changes. However, now when we go here, whatever our payment is, so here instead of contribution, we want to talk about a payment. And so I'm going to just hit enter for a moment, and I'm going to call this a payment. So there's a payment, and now I'm going to delete all this stuff, because typically with a payment you just have some basic payment, and let's just say it's $200. So there's $200, I make that payment. But here I have to reflect how the payment works. So remember my balance that I owe the bank. So I took $100, I'm using it for a pay period or a period, and so there's my $1,000. There's the interest the bank wants for me having their money, just like if they have my money, I want interest. So there's the interest the bank wants. But now, with a payment, that actually takes away from the balance. It doesn't add to the balance. And so I put a minus sign in the E2. And once again, though, if I'm going to have the same payment every time, well, then I'll put a dollar sign in front of that too. And I hit enter. And see, notice, so I had the $1,020 that I owed them at the end of period 0, but then I made that $200 payment. So at the beginning of period 1, I only owe $820. And now if I pull that down, that will reflect what's going on. And notice what happens is the payment shows that I'm making progress, and actually after 5 periods, I'm down to just $63. If I were to make another $200 payment, I'd actually go negative and the bank would owe me. So typically what happens with loans is they give you some payment amount and you pay all but the last payment, and then that one you set up special. Now, it probably wouldn't work quite like this where it's just $63. So they would try to make it closer to whatever your payment is. Well, we can do that with just guessing and checking. So here, instead of 200, I'm going to just try like 150. And now with 150, it actually dropped down. Let's go back to 200 so we can see what I was working with. I'll just type in a 200. That was 5 periods. So suppose I want to pay it off in 5 periods, in 6 periods. So I would still have a balance at period 5, but I'd like my balance at period 6 to be 0. So I'm targeting this number here to be 0. So when I do 150, it's not 0, it's $33. I didn't pay enough. Well, let's try 155. Okay, I overpaid by $3.63. That's pretty good. I owed 148. The bank would be probably pretty happy with that. Now, but if you're a little anal retentive or something like that, we can try 153. No, that wasn't enough. 154. That wasn't enough. So 155, but it could be 154.50. Ooh, 9 cents. So I'm really close. I need to take it up by a penny, I bet. So I go in here, I take it up by 1 cent, 150. Oh, 1 penny. So 154.52. And there, what would happen is I would make a payment at the end of period 1, 2 payments, 3 payments, 4 payments, 5 payments of $154.52, and then the bank would have me make a payment of $151.43 to actually make it 0, not it would be $151.43 plus $3.03. They would have me pay $154.46 to get a balance of 0. Okay, so that's how the bank would actually work, but we'd be really happy with this. Actually, I was really happy with 155 and just seeing that, hey, I was within a few bucks here. So I would just go, oh yeah, you'd have around $155 payment. So that is how loans differ from savings. Okay, so that's the basics of loans and savings, and we'll do another video where we use slightly more complicated ideas with both savings and with loans. So that's it for the